It started on a cold autumn evening, the kind where the wind carried whispers of rain and the streets gleamed under the flicker of old neon lights. Inside a small-town diner on the edge of the highway, the comforting hum of conversation mixed with the clinking of silverware. Among the few customers that night was a young girl named Emily, sitting alone by the window. She was 16, with soft brown hair tied in a loose ponytail and a small brace wrapped around her left leg. Born with a mild disability that affected her gait, Emily had grown used to the stares of strangers, but not the cruelty that sometimes came with them. She loved coming to that diner after school. It was the one place where she felt normal. The waitress, an older woman named Marlene, always greeted her by name and made sure her favorite strawberry milkshake was waiting at the counter. That night, Emily had brought her sketchbook, quietly drawing superheroes while sipping her milkshake. She didn't notice when the door opened and 3 young men walked in, laughing loudly, reeking of cheap beer and arrogance. They were local troublemakers, the kind who thought toughness came from making others feel small. They spotted Emily almost immediately. One of them, a tall guy with a leather jacket and a cruel smirk, nudged his friend and nodded toward her. "Hey, look who's trying to be an artist," he sneered. The others laughed, their voices cutting through the diner's calm. Marlene shot them a warning glance, but she was alone on shift and didn't want trouble. Emily tried to ignore them, burying her face deeper into her sketchbook, but the laughter grew louder. The tallest one walked up to her table, grabbed her drawing, and waved it in front of his friends. "What's this supposed to be? A superhero that walks like you?" he said mockingly. Emily's heart sank. She reached out timidly. "Please, give it back." He didn't listen. Instead, he crumpled the paper and tossed it aside. When she stood to grab it, her leg brace made her stumble slightly. That only made them laugh harder. Something inside her broke. Tears welled in her eyes, and before she could turn away, the tall thug slapped her across the face, not hard enough to injure her, but enough to make the entire diner go silent. The sound echoed against the walls, freezing everyone in place. Marlene shouted at them to leave, but they only laughed and swaggered out, leaving Emily trembling, her cheek red and her sketchbook torn on the floor. The few other diners looked away, uncomfortable, unsure what to do. Marlene rushed to Emily's side, her heart breaking at the sight of the frightened girl. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," she said softly. "They'll get what's coming to them. I promise." Emily nodded weakly, her voice barely a whisper. They always get away with it. But that night, fate was listening. An hour later, the sound of engines rolled in like distant thunder. The floor vibrated as one by one, motorcycles lined up outside the diner, at least 20 of them, their chrome gleaming under the streetlights. The door swung open, and a group of burly bikers walked in, their leather jackets bearing the name Iron Shields. The leader, a tall man with a gray beard and kind eyes, looked around before taking off his helmet. "Evening, folks," he said calmly. "We're just here to grab some food and coffee." Marlene, still shaken, tried to compose herself. "Of course. Take any table you'd like." But before she could walk away, Emily's sketchbook caught the leader's eye. He picked it up gently, noticing the torn pages and the smudged drawing of a superhero. "This yours, sweetheart?" he asked. Emily hesitated but nodded. "Yeah." Someone ripped it. The man's expression hardened. Someone? When Marlene quietly explained what had happened an hour earlier, the diner fell silent again. The bikers exchanged looks, not the kind filled with rage, but a deep, steady resolve. The leader, who introduced himself as Jack, put a hand on Emily's shoulder. Nobody lays a hand on a kid, especially one who's just trying to make the world a little brighter. He turned to his group and said, "Boys, I think we've got a little ride to take before dinner." Minutes later, The roar of engines filled the night as the bikers rolled out of the parking lot. No one in the diner said a word. Emily sat by the window, watching the taillights disappear into the darkness. For the first time that night, she smiled, just a little. About 30 minutes later, the same motorcycles came rumbling back. Jack walked in first, his jacket damp from the drizzle, and set something down on the counter, a crumpled piece of paper. "Your drawing, fixed up," he said with a grin. "And I believe those boys won't be bothering anyone again." Marlene raised an eyebrow. "What did you do?" Jack chuckled. "Let's just say we had a friendly chat. Made them understand what respect means." He then looked at Emily. "You keep drawing, okay? The world needs your kind of strength." Tears filled Emily's eyes as she nodded. The other bikers took seats, ordered coffee and pie, and filled the diner with laughter again, not the cruel kind from earlier, but the kind that warmed the room. They treated Emily like one of their own, asking about her drawings, even joking that she should design their next club logo. By the time they left, the rain had stopped. Jack knelt beside Emily's chair, handing her a small patch with the words "Iron Shields Honor Ride." "Whenever you feel scared," he said, "remember, you've got a family out there watching your back." As the engines roared into the night again, Emily sat quietly, clutching the patch. Her cheeks still ached, but inside her heart something powerful had shifted. For the first time, she didn't feel like a victim. She felt protected. Years later, that same diner became her art studio. On the wall above the counter hung a framed picture of her and the Iron Shields, standing together, smiling under the neon sign. And right beside, it was her drawing, the superhero she'd once been mocked for. Only now, that hero looked a lot like her, because that night, Emily learned something she'd never forget. Real strength isn't about fists or fear. It's about standing up for what's right, no matter how small or broken you feel. And sometimes, heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes, they ride motorcycles and show up when the world least expects it.